So I'm Bob Marty, and I'm going to be moderating today with these wonderful people. I just want to give you a kind of a big idea of what this is. We're going to go behind the scenes with so many talented people and kind of talk about both the creative process, where ideas come from, how do they fit it into their family, the whole mishtuka, as some people would say. So let me start by introducing everyone. Mary Daly is a writer and a sculptor, a wonderful friend, and much more. Sarah Hawkey is a classical soprano, which we're going to find out what that means. I keep saying she's an opera singer, which I think she is, but classical soprano, very interesting. Carolyn Prusa is an author, novelist, and also one of the two people, along with Tom Casey, who came up with this wonderful idea. So thank you, Carolyn. Is Tom here? Hey, there's Tom. And my old friend, Fred Newman. Fred Newman is, I think of him as a voice artist. That's how I describe it, but we'll learn more about you and your many, many, many talents. Is that how there's your friend? Fred? Fred? Joe? I pulled out a quote, and I would like each of you to kind of comment on it. And this comes from Albert Einstein, Mary. Why don't we start with you? Creativity is intelligence having fun. How about that?
I think that sounds very accurate. I know one of the things I have on my workbench on the wall is have fun, because I've gone through many stages in my career where I'm more serious, or you can get really caught up in the problems. And so my new mantra has been, if you're not having fun, you got to switch something.
Right.
So that's very relevant to me right now.
Wow. And then a soprano, I mean, that takes so much training and time and energy. Did you have any fun doing it?
We were talking about this before we started. I do have a lot of fun when I sing. I feel like I'm most in my purpose on the planet when I'm on stage. So this environment suits me very well. But as part of it's my personality, and part of it's being a classical musician that takes incredible precision. I think that sometimes I'm not that fun about it until the singing skills. But I think, can you read the quote one more time?
Oh, sure. Creativity is intelligence having fun.
I think there's a greater intelligence that flows through us as artists, and I'm an interpretive artist, so I get to have fun interpreting someone else's greater inspiration. So I think.
So, Carolyn, fun is the thing, but I want to ask about your origin as a writer, as an author. Like, did you have that as a kid? Were you like the person who's turning in 3 essays when only one was due?
No, I was the person writing weird stories somewhere else instead of the things you're supposed to turn in. But I was always a storyteller, and I was always an observer of people. And just like to create worlds. But in terms of that, what I was just thinking for on the writing front, I don't know what do you think? I feel like the fun part is the idea, and that's energizing to me. But then there's the other part of it, like the discipline.
Yeah.
Well, the fun part is it can be like the rough draft,
Yeah.
or just the beginning. And then it always work at some point. Elizabeth Murray said she knows things are going well in the studio when she starts to laugh.
Fred, you're like fun in a man.
Well, I think it's all jinx, and in the moment, and work to be there, and shake off when you're not in the moment. Why am I not here? What is distracting? What and the intelligence with the play. I'm not sure how intelligent I am, but I'm aware, the play is everything. I mean, every conversation. I'm throwing it out there and see how people react, and then and people will play with it, and I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, I just was thinking about this, like, because as we're talking, that two people, Sarah and Fred, are performers, right? So their art happens with an audience. But an author, writer, and a sculptor writer, we do our work in private. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because it's almost like the magic, you prepare, and for a sculptor or a writer, the book or the sculpture or the writing is the kind of thing that happens out there, but there's not an audience really in the same sense. Can you talk about that?
Which can be lonely. Because you're stuck with your head yourself. Your head alone. So like I don't know about Mary, but I try to find a balance. Like you need people, you need experiences, you need inspiration, and then you gotta come back and be alone yourself.
Well, for me, I'm most creative when like the pressure's off. I never had any one single theatrical bone in my body. I was in a play once, I had one line in our town, and I had to get up and say, you know, dress in black, pop my head through a window and say, "Oh, horror." And it sounded like horror. I was back there sweating. I like to do it just like when I was in high school, you know. I much prefer to study for a test and like have it all, you know, be prepared. So if that's like sculpture, writing, it's done, you know it's right, you put it out there. Whereas in performing, you could screw up in front of you know, it's much worse. I'd rather be lonely.
I wonder if you guys get energy from an audience, whereas like sometimes with writers that we're competing with the voices in our head that's like, that's okay, that's dumb. Whereas like you guys have sort of validation or not.
Yeah, you have to be your audience. You gotta, you know, pull back and look at that. Is that worthy of it? Oh, wow.
You know, even in art, there was an art critic, and I think it's Susan Sontag, who said that for a visual artist, that the art is only completed once you have someone seeing it. And so in some senses, you know, the performer has that happening instantaneously. When we have to, your book has to be printed and shipped and it's sitting in a Barnes and Noble or Amazon or somewhere, and somebody has to actively get it, you're not really necessarily seeing that person experiencing it.
Oh, but they can review you. That's my other thing.
But for a visual artist, you know, somebody has to be in front of your sculpture or in front of a drawing or your work.
Well, my first one-person show I had in 1987, I didn't know whether I had the chops to do what I was doing. So I said, this doesn't work, you know, people don't like this. I'm doing something else. And everybody liked it. So, you know, I had a whole bunch of work. So that was really
Validation.
Yeah, that was validation. And there are times, of course, where you think, what the hell am I doing, even after many years? And that's one reason, well, no. But I think I'm very self-sustained.
Right.
I do like to show my work, I like to sell it, I like people to read my work. So when I started writing, I wasn't going to continue that either if the teacher didn't say said I was no good. You know, that was one of the things, one of the secrets I thought of is, you know, hopefully you're, you know, I might like to sculpt like Michelangelo, but I don't have those skills. So you have to figure out who you are as a person,
Right.
and then, you know, mesh that with what your skills are, what your superpowers are.
Right. I love that idea. But let's roll back the decades a little bit. Fred, how did you start doing what you do? I mean, I only met you when you were fully hatched.
You calling? No.
No, I'm not. But I'm really serious. We know each other pretty well, and you've told me about Georgia and Harvard, but it's interesting that what you do is so unique. There's not really, I mean,
I turned 1 happy first grade. I was a kid that was just allowed to run free on the edge of town, and it was a big farm. I grew up with animals and the big, you know, 6 cousins on one side, 3 cousins over here, and we all played, and it was pretty perfect, but I still was a loner. I got other people, so when I went to first grade and had to lock in and sit in a desk for, 5 hours. And it was crazy to me, and I was like, this changed my life. Because it was an important moment, and may have, if I've told stories in front of you, I may have told this, because it comes to me now, is I went up to the teacher and I went up to Miss Johns, who was, and it was during like a reading time, we were barely reading, I'm only like 2 or 3 weeks into the class, and I had seen, Mr. Science on Saturday morning. Herbert Zim, do you remember this show? It was a science show on Saturday mornings. Anyway, a kid show, but he did science. And he talked about vibrations, what about sound and vibrations. And so I just went up to her desk and said, Miss John, you want to see, I can do a vibration. And she went, a vibration. And she took her glasses off, looked at me and went, yes, ma'am. And I went. And she looked across the desk. And she's the first person I showed it to. I just was thinking it. And she went, you want me to call your mama? Yes, ma'am. So mom came over and she came doing, and she so I'm walking in front of my mom scared me like this. And she said, what was that? She said, I did vibration. She said, oh, honey. It's something you do with yeah, you don't show it to the
Like in the library.
yeah. But I got a school for day with it. Yeah. To she wasn't mad at me. And it sort of said it is that Einstein, it's about play. It's about play. And get people to throw the ball over there and see if they and people who do you want to play with them. In conversation or just life.
Yeah.
And it means you're here now. So
And having the courage to be weird, like.
yeah,
Go where no one else is on.
I always been called,
Yeah.
you're weird.
And it's a career.
Get quirky.
Yeah. Get
So
quirky.
Fred, it's a career.
Yeah. No, it's just the honking people with, even, I'll shut up. I won't.
Well, I have a question. When you started realizing your career more, seriously, did you look back at that moment and did that validate your choice?
I had forgotten that.
Oh.
Until just now.
No, a couple of years ago, and I think, I did something Mark Twain, I think I may have told the story. But it became, that was a turning point for me to get like, okay, I can get through school as long as you allow me to do that. Just going, but I was on their side. I mean, I'd never talked to them, I paid attention, I did all that, but I was surprised from time to time.
So you and I have talked about your talent, and I want to kind of take that idea of storytelling, which is where you said to me when we were talking about your past, and come to Sarah and talk about as a classical soprano. First of all, I want you to define that, but secondly, how songs are stories, and in fact, we're all storytellers in the broadest sense of that, because there's a beginning, middle, and end. You're writing, of course, but in your sculptures, there's a story inside Leona. Or obviously in a novel, there's stories in there. Can you talk about it as a vocalist?
Yeah. In my development of my artistry, especially as an adult in New York City, I really started to embrace this idea of being an interpretive storytelling singer, basically. Oh, you wanted me to define classical soprano. The reason I call myself a classical soprano, I specialize in singing classical music. I used to sing a lot of opera. I do not anymore, unless it's by Handel, basically.
But we're gonna
Or
have you
something.
Aida.
I do not sing Verdi. But now I specialize in early music, so that means the music of 1700s and before, and my specialty is, I don't think you knew this about me, Baroque era music. So I'm not a Baroque soprano, I'm a Baroque soprano. And I sing a lot of music by the guys who are alive and gals in the 16 and 1700s, like Handel, Vivaldi, Monteverdi, these people you would have heard of. Not the Puccini, not the Verdi, but my training in conservatory is in opera. And we're telling stories in other languages. We're becoming characters and doing character study and also learning extreme virtuosity with the voice. And nowadays, I sing a lot of stuff from the 15 and 1600s that are little songs, like little vignettes, usually about love, heartbreak, sex is in there, and nature. Those are what the songs are mostly about, and just telling like these little poetic stories. I feel like I'm a time traveling artist, or that I'm a portal for time travel, because the music that people were singing and being heard, chamber music's meaning small ensembles, not a big orchestra, salon music, meaning at parties or fancy people's homes, was being heard back then. And that's what I channel now to audiences. It's kind of like a portal to get, I feel like I time travel when I sing.
So very cool.
Do you know the history of that time also? Is that part of your
Yeah.
training?
Not part of my formal training, because I didn't do, there are historical performance programs where but it's mostly for instrumentalists. There are very few for vocalists. So I kind of like lean on my friends that went to the Juilliard Historical Performance Program. And I'm like, can you please tell me about the Duke of Essex? It's like one of the people I'm singing about.
Yeah, I heard that Keith Richards wrote a lot of that music back in the 1700s.
That's what I specialize in.
I'd like to talk about inspiration with you, Mary. But I have a quote.
Okay.
A quote. Pablo Picasso supposedly said, inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. And I thought that, it rang so true to me. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think for me, a big inspiration for me is the question of what if, both in writing and in sculpture. And I'm interested in, what happens, like an example of a story I wrote, what happens if a family moves into the house and they discover under the aluminum siding that it's made out of gingerbread, or what happens if, early on, my what if was formal. And then as I sort of developed my voice, it became more and more narrative. What happens, for example, the piece you talked about, Leona, which is a sculpture with a giant mouth. It's about 5 feet tall, and then the body is this esophagus, and then it goes to this big claw foot. And it was part of the series I built of totems, and each totem represented a side of human nature. And Leona was avarice, So at that time, that series was inspired by the 90s and the Reagan era. So it's comes from within. I have a crazy imagination, so I just tap into that. Have an idea, and I just tap into it, and I just run with it. So invention, transformation,
Right.
and let's see, what was the other one? And sculpting.
Yep.
Those are the things.
So, Carolyn, I'm just curious, a book, a novel is a huge commitment of time, energy. So to be inspired, if I'm making a small thing, it's a week or two, but a novel can be years. So you really need to have something that inspires you so deeply that you're going to go through the gates of hell to get to the other side. So how do you find that inspiration in your novel? Like, how do you think about that?
I bet different novelists have different answers, but for me, it's about character and voice. So the main character, Ramona, in my novel, put her in a pressure cooker, bless, just threw all these awful things at her. But at the time, my kids were little, and I was, trying to work and remember who I was and all the things that happened in motherhood. And so Ramona's voice, sort of like the stress of motherhood and all the other evil things I threw at her, like hurricanes, sort of like came very naturally. And then you sort of asking yourself, well, what's her husband like? What's her job? And you start world building from there. And I feel like in terms of a bigger project, it's got to be something that keeps evolving, that I'm super interested in. Because if you run up against a dead end, then
Are these things you see, or they words, or they how they manifest?
it's a combo. I'm usually inspired by people around me and situations, and I love just the awkwardness of modern parenting. I love, oh my gosh, like I have 7,000 different apps for the sports for my kids, so I love when there's like a tense moment. I love when people fight on Facebook or writing. I just feel like the things that people get passionate or ruffled about are so fascinating.
So there's a lot of novelists I've talked to talk about, and screenwriters talk the same way, that the characters actually start to take on a life of their own. They start talking back to you. You're like, wait a second, you're not supposed to have a gun in this scene, like, but they have a gun. So can we talk about the dialogue that happens between the work, the dialogue between the interpretation of a song, that you're hearing it back, or you're seeing a piece of sculpture, and it actually then is a part of your creativity, a part of the artistic process. Can you talk about that?
Well, I just wanted to talk about what Carolyn was talking about, when the story gets going, when you hit the character, it's like on automatic, and then it's fun, because you feel like you're just being carried along. You don't have to even work at it. The stuff just kind of flows out. So that flow is really great. And making a sculpture, that's a little bit different. And that's why I switched, or I took writing on, because my sculpture became more narrative. And sculpture, I'll have a cool drawing, so I'll flow there, lots of creativity in there, and then how am I going to build the thing? And I try to draw in 3 dimensions to keep that flow and going, but it's harder in sculpture,
But does it not talk back to you?
Oh,
As you
yeah.
change it,
Yeah.
as it becomes something more than the drawing, because you're not just executing the drawing, you're
Yeah.
letting the materials and the time and the process talk back to you, right?
Yeah, you have to work with the material. That's one thing I learned early on, is I tried to make the material do what I wanted it to do, and that didn't work out so well. And the reason why I ended up working with wood is it kind of fit my aesthetic and my sensibility. And I learned to work with it. And for me, in sculpture, it's sort of easier to see what's working and what's not working. That was a question you asked last time. And in writing, you could get all, just carried away with something, and you've gone too far out, or you have to pull it back in. So it's, I forget what the question was.
Like,
Yeah, you answered it.
that's a really good feeling when it's just flowing.
Mhm.
And like the words that I'm putting on the page are crap. Like nobody wants to read that. But you're so excited about the idea. Sometimes I'll be like typing and it's not good. But I'm like, go, this is fun.
Right.
And then you have to go back and look at it, you're like,
And the way to make sculpture in wood is I make a bunch of different parts. So if one part doesn't work, I just put that down and make another part, and that works better. Or, so you have to design improvisation into your process, or else you're gonna get stuck.
Right. Very interesting. I want to go to influences. And Fred, I can't imagine who you're influencing. Are they? I mean,
Oh, yeah, I was a television, Red Skelton and you name any of the comedians, Dick Van Dyke, those people, they all had this one thing, that they were right there present. They weren't phoning it in. And if every, I'd see funny stuff, and it just, no, in arch movies, that's, no, something where you just see it happening in real space. So it also, it wasn't until college when I made my first sort of presentation in big arena class, psychology class. And the teacher came up afterwards and said, would you, he said, have you ever heard of, but I even forget the word, but like, but he tested me and I was, well into the spectrum and whatever that may be, but learning difference and so forth. I knew that I always did end arounds.
Was this at Harvard?
No, this was at University of Georgia,
Oh.
freshman year, University of Georgia. And there were people that talked really fast in my class. And my cousin, who looks a lot like me, very, very pigment challenged. And whenever we would get together, both rock.
Oh.
And so we were rockers, and I learned everywhere I've ever lived, I've always had a rocking chair. So I can do it in a rocking chair. I don't have to do it on. But I would always, though I was a rocker, like of that sort. And I learned to realize that they gave me special abilities in terms of understanding what was going on. But because I was right there, I'm not drifting on anywhere else. So I went on too long there. So
No, not at all. That was great. But like anybody like Mel Blanc, any of the great voice artists?
yes, I mean, I watch television, but just all those things. But I won't worry with. But I would do impressions of all that, and the teacher when she'd walk out of the room, I would go up and I would act her out and then sit back there. I was like,
Do
We
you
were
love accents?
I love that sense, yeah.
Same.
Yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
I love someone has a peculiar quality of the voice, I've got to follow them but I love that. And it's not, it's just being present. There's it. The last example of that is the journey I've taken with Garrison Keillor on Prairie Home. Was there for about 20 years on the show, in the show, and we still do live stuff. But with him, he always wrote everything out. And then I wouldn't look at it, it would just go up him. And so, but now just goes and we do shows, is that we don't know what's good.
Wow.
And he may or may not have written the script, but I'm not going to do the script. And so that makes, and then he will stop me. And so it's all about, it wouldn't work on live radio, but it works with a live audience because I can see like, I'm going to, so that's that. What could have been a handicap, I was really lucky. It was positive people said, it's okay. So, people suffer with that, and I've been able to harness that.
Yeah. Sarah, special places. I have this idea that artists of all stripes have a special place, and it may not be an actual physical location, but there's a special place that we go. But do you have a special place where you feel everything's right and that you could be creative and you could do your work?
I think that since my instrument is always with me, I think I always embody that, but that's a place I've had to be, that's a becoming journey. I wouldn't have always been able to say that. Then the second special place, I have this huge dahlia garden in my backyard. It's like 2,500 square feet. So I like to piddle around out there and not think about my craft. I can't practice in the garden. I sit inside of my piano or in my studio to practice. So, but I think I'm different. I don't carry cello on my back or a harpsichord, I'm always my artistry. As a singer, our bodies are our instrument, literally. Yours too. And so, I think about my voice, and I think about, maybe this is a little obsessive, but I think about it all the time. I'm also a voice teacher, so I think about the craft of voice all the time, literally all the time. So I kind of carry that with me, and then have to go out to the garden and be like, I need a break. I need a break from my passions, especially the older I get.
Right. I mean, Mary, do you have, I mean, artist studios often are kind of a sacred place. I mean, without it's not religious at all, but kind of a place where something magical happens.
Yeah, that's definitely true for sculpture, you know, you have all of your tools, you have all of your materials, you have little pieces on things all over that remind you of ideas you have, you know, the walls are covered. So it's like kind of entering inside your own head, except it's room. So that's, whereas writing is, you know, I do have a writing desk in the house, but I can write, I love, when it's get weather's nice, get your manuscript printed out, you know, put on some sunscreen, the hat, sit outside, that is heaven.
Wow.
Working outside on paper with a pencil,
Wow.
I love that, yeah,
Wow.
cause I write on the computer.
So you just said a word, edited. So here's another quote. I added quotes this time. Make it, then make it better. That's Frank Gehry. So I want to talk about that because I think people who aren't artists or who but appreciate art don't really understand the amount of redoing that we do. You know, classically, writing is called rewriting, and that's true. And it's the same in visual arts and sculpture and in voice. Can you talk about that, Carolyn?
That's what I'm working on with myself. Because like when I started, I wanted to be proud of every word. I still do, but like I have a super smart, way smarter than me agent who like she's like send me early drafts because it's like if I'm kind of barking up a tree that we're gonna cut that scene, there's no point in me spending like 2 weeks agonizing over a paragraph. I'm kind of working on that in myself, like get a story you feel great about, and then go more detailed, word by word, period.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly my experience with editing. I love, my favorite part of writing really is that first draft. Just, it's like drawing. Yeah, oh, you know.
Vomit it out.
It's a natural.
I remember, you know, my dad was a writer, but he wrote like annual reports and speeches and stuff. And he did a PR, he taught me how to write. But when I started letting him read my early short stories, he looked at it and he just said, "You're just making all of this up." So, and then you have to go back and you have to, the skill, because there's a lot of skill. There's so many things you can do wrong as a writer, which is why I went to graduate school. But the skill is bringing out the detail, bringing it alive. You know, after you have that rough draft, it's sort of like a board of wood. You know, you have the material, now you gotta shape it.
Is there a gardening analogy in there? Cause I'm seeing you prune, you know, you put out the plant and you prune here and there. You know, I mean, is that?
Right,
is
yeah,
that-
you do have to throw some stuff out, a lot. Yeah, it's hard, you know, we're saying, oh, this is so fun, but there are times when I am just absolutely, completely defeated. You know, I don't think I'm ever gonna find my way out. And I spent 10 years writing a novel. I liked it, but all the agents and the editors and everybody said, oh, try this, try that, well, public, you know, so I got a lot of runaround there. Yeah, so I know.
Or I don't know how many drafts people usually do before it goes to print. You're so sick of the characters by the end. The editor is like, how about a spaceship comes down and like sucks them like a fine. I don't care.
Right. I wanna do.
So
Classically,
no, because it you know, interpretive vocal, it's not exactly the same idea because
It's
somebody
so
created the
much
song.
oh my
Oh,
god.
there is, okay.
Oh my god. Then going back to your earlier question, the time alone, I love people and I'm very much a people person, probably very obvious about me. But the amount of time that I spend preparing repertoire alone would astound you.
Wow.
Astounding, especially if you take your craft very seriously, and I do, and want to be the best at it. It takes 10,000 hours to master the instrument, but that's where you start. That's where your career starts. And then you are like, oh, there's a whole new level. It's like a video game, and you're like, whoa. And then you start to learn to collaborate with others. But the editing process, the amount, there's one note on a page, but I have, because when you master your instrument, you become very free in the instrument. Yeah, sure, the notes are written down, and our job is to sing it or play it. But the way you can choose to sing it is very, I mean, you can
Huge
sing
artistry.
massive amount of artistry. I don't really think a song doesn't just go like a song goes.
Right.
You're trying to, I was thinking about when you all were talking, I do a lot of detective work when I'm excavating a piece of music.
Right.
I'm like, okay, this looks really freaking boring. I sing a whole note, which is like a whole measure. And then there's a rest. Like I'm working on all this repertoire for this concert, and I'm looking at pieces and going, you need to show me who you are, or you're getting cut. Like, I'm not going to bore my audience. And I listen to a couple of other people's, if there are recordings of this music, and oftentimes there are not, I listen to it and I'm like, okay, I love that choice that they made. And it could be an instrumentalist. Okay, there's something there. And I go back to the piano and I go, okay, it's just a whole note. And then I go, oh, wait a second. There's this rest that comes after. Okay, and it's a sad song. She's probably like singing and then like that. And now it starts to come to life. I really think people think classical music can be so boxed in who really don't know our craft. But you are working so hard to perfect your craft to be free on stage, to be free with the music, to be free to make it ours. Like the way I sing, the stuff I sing doesn't sound like anybody else. And just like editing, it's crazy. I'm crazy about it. Even the way I make sound can change, not as much as like what you do. Pretty much all stays in like a beauty box, but I can bring out at this point in my vocal journey so many different colors in my singing, but oh my god, it took so much work to get here.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, now the fun starts.
I have a question. When you go and you're performing, when you've worked on so hard, do you surprise yourself and do different things? Because
I
that's
do.
cool.
I do.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Does your work surprise you? Looking over my shoulder, but it's a great question for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my career has surprised me. I didn't realize I was attracted to like Bach. I always loved Bach, but there were no mentors to be like, you could do this for a living. I was like, okay, I'm like gonna do Puccini because that's what they teach me. But so that surprises me. It surprises me how much fun it is and how long lasting these relationships are with collaborators. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's great. And do you surprise yourself? I mean, do you put a sentence down like that muse says, or that character says something, and you just say, I shouldn't use, I'm about to use a bad word, and I won't do that. Holy cool. Like, no, but that comes from beyond.
No, I'll be like, that's great. And then I'll be like, no, but I do, yeah.
We'll get to self-doubt in a little while.
I do feel like there's moments where you're like, yeah, and you kind of feel it, and you're like, this feels right.
So Fred, have you ever like opened your mouth and made a sound that you didn't know was coming? And that's a money sound.
I try to remember it, and oftentimes I can't get back to it. I'm gonna come out. But there, I would say 10 to 20% I fail. I mean, and but that's, people don't remember that. They'll remember the ones that were. And so you really gotta, push a little harder and try, make the guy a little taller. Just like a little more echo. On the board, but whatever. But it's moment to moment. But it's a swing and miss sometimes. And people, so you don't get laughter, you didn't get the point across. That's okay, because the odds are okay. And I try to walk that edge. I really like not knowing exactly what's going to come out. I had to adjust as it comes out, and sometimes.
What's of improv? I think the thing that we all love about art, and everybody, who does anything creative, is that improv, seeing what's gonna happen.
You know,
That's where the fun and the play and
It is because everyone knows they're in time with you, and it comes from kids and playing with you know just. Yeah, they go. Put a dent in there. So like that part is, you know, it's great, and I probably would have done that differently if I thought about it.
But really, that brings up a really, I think that's an important point. Again, something that I don't know that people know who have kind of day job is the vulnerability that it requires to be an artist. Because if you know what you're doing, chances are it's not great, right? There's somehow a leap into the mystery, a leap into the unknown, along with the process and obviously experience and all that. Can we talk about vulnerability? Because you're doing it right now. You're putting yourselves out. I'm gonna ask you what your secrets are coming up. But the idea of being in a kind of opening the curtain a bit on how and why, and you talk about vulnerability.
well, I'm sort of addicted to that surprise, the invention, making something new, different, that's never been seen. I like to surprise myself. And so I'm up, I set myself up for failure almost every time, or the possibility of failure. And then I look at artists like Roy Lichtenstein is my perfect example. I was like, it's so boring to be him, really. Because he kind of, he does the same thing. He hit on something in the 60s and he just stayed with that. And, more power to him. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't just, so I
have to make the donuts.
So I feel that, but that's what makes it exciting for me. And I couldn't imagine just doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Carolyn, vulnerability as an author. I would think that, I assume, never written a book, but that it's your heart and soul inside the book. Even if you're masking it with characters, even if you're really like opening up and letting it flow, because that's the good stuff, right? But it's also scary. Can you talk about that sense of being, Mary talked about it, but that fear of failure, we all have it. We want to be liked because we're all artists, but the only way it becomes effective is when you go to that place that is, you're scared. I was going to use it with that word. My kids might be watching.
Yeah, this is kind of related to my secret because I do my homework. But I think with all of our crafts, it has to be something that you believe in so fiercely that you're willing to open yourself up to the hard stuff, which, like, probably everybody likes your voice, but like, we're all different readers. Like, if you read sci-fi or if you like, sort of mysteries, you might not like my book, and that's okay. So it's hard to sort of like, you have to know that when you're putting your art out there. But doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Right.
I think in my experience, my work gets better the more I deal with like really serious human issues. Like when I was in graduate school, I had one teacher who said, when you have that dark idea or that scary idea, that's where you go. That's where the material is. And Alice Munro always talked about like the dark room in the center of her novels. Now, unfortunately, we know what that is. But anyway, that gives the work the energy, and people like to look at art and read art and experience art because they're seeing their emotions and their troubles, or their love, or it could be positive, of course, too. They like to laugh. That's what they want. Art wants to bring out the emotion in the audience.
Right.
So the more I put in, the more of that emotion or meaning I get into it, the more successful the work is. So that's draining. You can really,
Yeah.
drag yourself through the mud on that one.
I mean, I can't imagine, because I'm not a singer, the vulnerability of standing in front of a crowd and opening your mouth and hoping that all that rehearsing, all that practicing. Because, again, as a non-singer, obviously, if you're a guitar player or whatever, like, performance is performance. It's like, it's a peak life experience, right? It's that if you get ready, and then let go, and it happens, or it doesn't. Talk about the vulnerability of standing in front of a crowd. Does it ever dawn on you, even though you're so rehearsed and so practiced and so confident in your instrument, but still, oh my God, you're still in front of a crowd?
It used to. I used to get super nervous when I would, especially auditioning. Auditioning, you're singing, you're supposed to sing your best in an extremely strange, contrived, very high pressure situation. That does not reflect normal performance whatsoever. So I've always been a bad auditioner until recently. But performing, I would say nowadays, I feel very at home on stage. I feel like but there was a tipping point. And I'm telling you, I was singing professionally at a very high level and then reached, for many years, at least a decade. And then the tipping point, I used to feel like, because of that vulnerability, because you're opening not only your craft, but yourself, like we talked about, your body is your voice on stage, and you're nervous. So if you're reacting, your heart's beating and your breath gets a little shallow, like it's toast for classical singing. I know.
Terrifies me.
Yeah, it's not very good. But I think that I lost my train of thought. But nowadays, now that I'm past that tipping point, the vulnerability, I think the vulnerability comes these days more in being brave with the extent to which we pursue the craft, the extent to which we're actually brave enough to put it out there, and to what kind of audience? To our local writing audience, to a world stage. How big can we think? But I will tell you, my friends that sing at the Met, my friends that sing on Broadway, I don't know about my Broadway friends because they perform every day, almost every day. But my Met friends get really nervous on stage still. And it's surprising to me.
Yeah. So Fred, hundreds and hundreds of live radio shows. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
It did a lot of television and stuff for kids and other things,
So, and you're talking about play and fun before, but 5 minutes to air, 1 minute, 30 seconds. That you did, I just said that, my palm got wet.
Television's different because you've got turn exactly 3, 2, 1, and you boom, you put it on. And that's harder. I've been lucky because the last 20 years, a live show, 2-hour show every Saturday night, that the mistakes are what you wish for. Because when you get in trouble,
That's interesting.
and the mistakes is when it happens almost all the time. But they're when one of you has to pick it up, and everyone knows it's going down live.
Yeah.
And everyone knows, and these, even the ones that we're doing now that are not broadcast, but the mistake, when you make a mistake, they go through it with you. And then when you pull out something, then like, it's like that everybody's like, if you leave, they're on your side because you're vulnerable, that's a great thing. And I just cannot imagine the pressure of music being that,
Exactly. Right?
Exactly.
It has to be very exact.
Well, there's that old quote from Pete Seeger, a banjo book that I learned a banjo with a kid, was that do you know how to read music? It was asked in this Northern Georgetown guy, and said, not enough to hurt my opinion. And I'm really that way, dyslexic, so it's impossible for me to read. I barely read words, but read music, no, it's not. But I've had to learn to calibrate and bend into it and so forth.
Right.
So, and a mistake in that when I'm doing it, I can make, let's go. So I'm really lucky I felt.
Right. So we have about 10 minutes left, so could you think about questions if you have any? Not yet, not yet. I have one more question, but unless we can go a little bit longer. Where's Elaine? There's Elaine. Is that okay? I'm getting the thumbs up. Are you okay for a couple more questions, everyone? Was that a round of applause? Yeah, that was for all of you. No, but you know, this panel, this program is called The Secret Lives of Artists. And if you had to identify one secret, and you're trying to share it with a younger person who's going to be an artist, because you're born an artist, but now at, 29. No, but seriously, how do you share something that's both without being pedantic about it, but there are secrets about being an artist. Maybe.
For me, I guess my big secret would be that becoming an artist was simultaneously with learning how to be, and a lot of in the background behind all of the work, I thought. So this is a secret. So I grew up with a depressed mother. So I got depressed when I was about 8. And I grew up in a family where, we weren't really allowed to have negative emotions. So when I was 28, I told my mother I was depressed. She goes, "No, you're not." That was her territory. So anyway, as an artist, in addition to always being interested in art and always liking to write and paint, and at Woolworths, oh my God, going to Woolworths, that aisle with all the office supplies and the
Yes.
I was like, I want to steal this whole thing and install it in my bedroom. But so that was all there. But behind all of that, I thought that through making art, I could figure out how to be, like Mom Keynes, how to be, how to live. And it took a long time. And it wasn't until, and that's one of the reasons I switched from sculpture to writing, because my sculpture is getting more narrative, but I was still depressed. And so I went to writing, and my writing teacher, second semester teacher, took this 10-page story and said, your characters have no emotions. So I was like, yes, they do. I had so much emotion writing that thing, I was just like an emotional mess. And I read it, and sure enough, my characters had no emotion. I started therapy. I started, getting emotions into my characters. I think that's one of the things in my novel, I just didn't quite nail that protagonist. So that's my secret. And in learning how to be an artist, I learned how to live a happy and constructive life. I got rid of a lot of my issues. So
And the art is central into that.
yeah, it's all wrapped up and together.
Right.
Yeah.
Love that.
So anyway,
Gosh, that's a perfect segue. Okay.
You chose a very challenging profession,
I
right?
did.
I mean, there's very few
My
people.
profession chose me. I would have never done this to myself. The hardships, I think, all right, my big secret is I moved to New York, and I just started a podcast, so now it's public, but I kept this a secret for so long.
Well, lean in.
For 6 years.
Wow.
It took me 6 years to get hired. It makes me feel like crying. It was so hard. I would have never done that voluntarily. And because of the conditioning that comes along with, you should really try something else, or family. I'm from Missouri, from a place where it's not like Fairfield County, it's not like New York City metro area. People do not, you sing at church as a volunteer. You're not paid to sing, and you certainly do not make a living with your singing, performing. Oh, you should go be a teacher. So that was the conditioning that I grew up with. But I had this strong light inside of me that was like, I have to do this, or I'm going to be old and wither and live with all these regrets and like have kids and 3 divorces like everybody else in Missouri. And I never been married, no divorces because I've never been married, no children. But I was gonna say, so that's probably my dirty secret. But the good secret is that I don't think people realize it's not just cultivating the craft of this high level classical musicianship. That takes incredible dedication, especially when you're working 7 other jobs and you're going to lessons at Juilliard and you're like, oh my gosh, please let this happen. But for me, I have a daily dedication also to stripping away the noise, those negative voices that only one person in this room does not have. That's probably Marcus. The self-doubt and like going, you know, okay, I want to move in this direction. And there's this chatter like a character. It's like a character that is not not your higher self. Going, well, maybe you shouldn't. Well, maybe you should really do this, and maybe you should sing parody and blah blah blah. You should stick to Mozart. And it's like I have to do like a serious practice to go, no, I'm gonna hone in on my inner voice because
A different
as a-
inner voice,
it's
not
a
that,
different
not that
inner
one.
voice. Yeah, so it's not just cultivating my actual singing to be great. It's there's this another quote by the choreographer. Somebody's going to help me out. She says, "Keep the channel open. Keep the channel open." Do you know who I'm talking about? There's a it's by a choreographer. I'll come to me in a minute.
Martha
Martha
No,
Graham, was it?
Martha
No,
Graham.
Martha Graham.
Martha Graham has this quote that I encountered years ago where she talks about our job as artists is basically to clear the channel and to keep the channel open. It makes me so emotional to say, but like this is a daily practice. I feel like it's an artery. And I have to go, no, 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 no. Especially modern life, that's a lot of hogging of the artery. To go, how am I going to clear that noise to let my channel open and let whatever greater forces that want to speak through me get the point of the classical craft is to get yourself out of the way
That's right.
and fully, yeah, don't you think? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't plan that.
You know, that inner voice, it will go away. I really beat mine up and it's pretty. Yeah, it'll go away. It does. I mean, it's still there a little bit, but mine was really bad.
It's like what happens, it's like in artistry, there's an editing process, right? Like gardening, like weeding, but then there's this other thing. This is not the same thing. That you're used to pushing. I'm not sure if you have this. You seem very free. Pushing against something. What happens and what we're pushing against is usually internal. It's usually embodied external negativity. What happens when this goes away? Right? And then, I don't know. So I'm probably gonna die then or something. I don't know.
I heard a novelist said, you know, do you think that you would have been a better artist if you hadn't gone through all that stuff
Yeah.
you went through? And the writer said, oh my God, if I didn't need all of that. That set me way back. If I didn't have to deal with that, I could have gotten, you know.
And an insurance salesman.
Yeah, that's. But anyway, yeah, that can really hinder your progress.
Yeah.
Secret. I'm building on. I feel like you artists have to be tough. We're really tough. We're tough. As males, like so you're talking about not working for a while, and the book I saw was like the 4th novel I wrote. So like, what kind of cuckoo bananas people are we to like work on something for a year that never goes anywhere, or 3 years, or 10 years, but it's like a drive that we have, and we can't do anything else. So it's my secret.
So tenacity is like, I mean, and we all know that because what we show is the finished whatever, the finished recital, the finished sculpture or writing, the finished novel, the finished funny sounds. No, but I'm saying like it's finished. People don't have any clue. I mean, they really don't. I mean, in different professions and different artistry requires days, weeks, months, years, decades to get good at. So,
I'm very uncomfortable using being an artist. I don't think of myself as an artist. But because that presupposes all sorts of things. I would never, but what I have felt, a little bit like the last discussion, what I have felt is that it all starts working if you've got, I do not believe in body, mind, and soul, which is part of the whole Greek thing. No, it is not separated. They're not, it's all one deal. I think with these, I think, that all of that, I just feel connected. And when I'm just throw off all this self stuff and throw it out there and just you work with the whole body. So I loosen up, I stretch all the time, I sit down, I might write something, I might come up with a sentence, I might dictate something to my phone, but that's not artistry, it's just living. And I think that one does, if you can throw we're in this little shell over here. And it works. I mean, you're extraordinary, and you do that. I just it's just I've always played, and so the playfulness that I do with other people, from even as a kid, and I was still a loner. I get out and talk to people, but that notion of all of this, and that you've got to eat right, treat your body right, exercise, do this sort of thing, and then and thoughts come, and then you can, oh, that's a good, I don't really have to work at play to get them.
Oh, great.
Your example is each of us has our own sort of trick that brings out our own specific talents. You have your process.
Well, yeah, I had my dark time.
And so, yeah, and so, that's what's important, is you have to you not only learn to be an artist, but in that process you learn to be the best self, your best, most authentic self. So that's the cool thing. So much pressure in this world to be this, to do that, or to have your house look this way. My house does not look that way.
So I think we are definitely running over a little bit. So anybody have a question, maybe? Okay, great.
My question is for Sharon. When you rehearse, do you record yourself? And if you listen to those recordings, does your performance match what you hear in your own body? Or are you judging by what you're hearing outside your body?
That's such a great question. In voice, we don't have a direct feedback loop, so I'll never truly get to know what I sound like in the space. I do record myself. Now, it's the way I found through recording rehearsals that, like, let's say I was going to take a train into the city for a rehearsal, like I'll do this week, and then come back. I do like to listen either same day or next day, and then be like, oh, that choice doesn't work. Oh, that's how I need to sing that. I get so many aha moments when I listen back. It's different when you're actually doing it. It can feel very differently than you listen back and you're like, oh, or sometimes things, especially when I'm talking about vocal technique, the way I make sound, sometimes when I'm in a moment of real big adjustment in my voice, things that are the best sound, that's why I always have to have outside ears, like my own mentors, they don't feel that good. And I have to have that direct feedback of like, whoop, and he can be like, that's it. And I'm like, okay, I have to go with the thing that feels disembodied and weird right now. Okay, go for it. Disembodied and weird. That's a great question. But
You can calibrate yourself based on input from masters.
definitely.
Right,
Yeah, it's really important.
right. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I sort of have a question. All of you, so Mary, when she makes sculpture, she goes in her studio and her process is there. It's the structure is there. When Sarah goes into her studio, there's nothing there. It's ephemeral. There's nothing there. Where a writer lives in their head and there's nothing to see until the book's done. And Fred, yours is
Fred.
Fred is reacting in real time, in the present.
Having played.
And then, you look at each of these artists and you see Mary will have a show and that's when she'll get the reaction of her audience, and Sarah the same, and Carolyn the same, and Fred the same. So like the art comes back to us in that way, but the process, you could say to a writer, what'd you do, I could say, how was your writing today? She'd say, oh, I wrote 2 pages, or I didn't write, or I threw it out. And Mary will say, well, it's
I
physical.
filed,
It's
I
like,
filed the bangs and 5 leaves today.
but it's a physical, there's a very different process for the artist, the painter, and the sculptor to the writer, to the person who uses their voice, because a dancer, they train all that time, and then the performance is gone. It's not, it's probably not even recorded.
Sarah, are there any chisels involved in classical soprano?
I think
No chisels and sanders and what?
I do silversmithing and lapidary as a hobby, so I'm insane, I guess.
What would be wonderful is to have you work with Fred, and that he could illustrate a 16th century
It would be
love song.
amazing.
And I can hear some farts in that song. Oh, yeah. That's why I'm a producer, right?
I'm envisioning, when I listen to Sarah talk, I'm envisioning this horror story, this Baroque singing, and you're in like this dark house. Because to me, I'm horrible at singing, it's scary as hell, and to be up there and singing and then have somebody say, you did it wrong, you gotta do it this way. I just see the monsters, swirling.
That's not what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, but for me, that would be like, I'm trying to envision what.
If somebody gave me a thing to sculpt, I'd be like, just throw it on the ground and let it crack and be like, there you go. I have no idea. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have a stress dream about that.
Sorry.
Hey, yes.
Sarah, I have a question for you. This wonderful article in the Sentinel today
Oh,
about
about my dog?
about your dolly. So, recommend it.
I didn't see it about what.
I didn't know when it's gonna come out.
But do you use your time in your garden to get away from singing a little bit, or do you sing while you're gardening?
I
Or is
do
it
think,
a bit of both?
as any gardener will know, hands in the earth is very grounding, very grounding. So I kind of fled to the country to get my hands in the ground. I did not know that I would rip up a third of my property and plant dahlias. My God, it's getting bigger this year too.
Like you're talking
But,
about.
but because I almost never listen to classical music in the garden. I will oftentimes talk on the phone or listen to nothing, train myself to be present with the birds and stuff this time of year. And it's like the way I take a break, or like going to walk over a Topstone with my dog. That's like, I'm like, okay, Sarah, you need to stop thinking of, because I'm a very wired, ambitious person. So I think a lot about my dreams. And then these are the ways for me to go, you need to take a break from your dreams, because just like gardening, they have to have time to germinate. I can't just sit there with my dahlia seeds and be like, are you there yet? Are you there yet? Are you there yet? So it kind of like keeps me literally grounded in nature, but also, living in New York and pursuing a career so intensely like I did, especially having to I had to retrain my voice and everything, that I only had time to work my other jobs to support myself and work on my craft. I didn't get to have time or money for hobbies, and as soon as I did, I moved to Reading, bought a house, and now I have hobbies. Yeah, it makes me feel now like a much more whole person. And those things that we do, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but outside of artistry, friendship, family, time in nature, time looking at the lake at Hopstone, it's like I'm now a whole person when I go to sing, and I feel more grounded when I do sing because of that, because it isn't the only thing in my life.
So one more question if we have one? No more question.
Maybe from
Okay,
Zoom.
no problem. Is there a hand up? I'm not seeing,
No,
is there
it's
anything
Zoom.
from Zoom?
No.
No, so,
I have one thing to
oh.
say, and that is that I've been listening to interview with Ezra Klein, the New York Times, and Michael Pollan, and they talk about how, you're working hard, and it's that downtime when you stop thinking, you stop working, and then the ideas pop into your head.
That's
When you go for the walk, and that's when the really good ideas come, when you're not trying. So that's.
So I just heard that described.
This question, yeah.
Right, I heard that described as, and this sounds, I don't know what, the fertile void.
Mhm.
Because Miles Davis used to talk about, don't play the notes, play it between the notes. Right, so this whole idea that in the silence is the truth, or in the silence, so there's that idea, and it's completely true in mine. Very, what do you have coming up?
Well, let's see. I've got a show. I'm gonna have 11 pieces at a show at Georgetown Arts Gallery
Wow.
in Bloom, and that opens May 16th from 4 to 6.
Great.
So that's on the art side. The writing side, I've just I sat down and I wrote 8 days. I wrote 8 stories, 8 shorts, and I just let it rip. It was so much fun, and so now I'm rewriting those. So I'm really juggling it and having a blast. Yeah.
Sarah, do you have some recitals coming up perhaps?
The day after your opening,
We're keeping you.
Sunday, yeah, Georgetown's getting busy in May. Sunday, May 17th, which is 1 week after my dahlias will go in the ground. I'm singing my very first concert here in Reading, and I moved here from the city in 2019, and I have been wanting to share my gift with this community for that long. So at the new arts space in Georgetown, the Granite, I'm doing a concert called Love's Arc. I can't remember the subtitle right now, but I put my little invitation cards over by the door if you want to take one. It has all the details. It's Sunday, May 17th at 3 p.m. and it'll be just this beautiful music, most likely that you've never heard before, by composers like I was talking about from the 16 and 1700s. And a lot of it is the love songs, heartbreak songs, and then I made sure to find a bunch of songs about flowers and birds because it'll be May. Yeah.
Carolyn, what's the name of your novel?
It's called None of This Would Have Happened If Prince Were Alive. You can buy it wherever you buy books. Encourage people to go to independent bookstores to save the publishing.
Is it available at the Mark Twain Library?
My new one is currently out for submission with editors, so put out good vibes for that.
Yeah. Fred, what 500 things do you have coming up?
Yeah, I'm always working on projects, but about my secret project sort of that I'm doing, trying to do what I've done with sound, I'm doing with light and painting. And so I've been doing that. I'm not interested in showing or anything. I'm just like, for me, it's for me. And more shows with Garrison coming up, and I do my own little shows around, just but mostly just and getting a dollar Mario.
Whoa! Enjoying the other area of
Yeah,
choice.
so we have both.
Are you having fun playing? Are you liking what you're doing?
Yeah, and the that's when I've turned off everything else and ideas, so people add, but like I said,
And please come to the Georgetown Arts and Cultural Center, where we have many events that happen all over the.
So is that what you want to share?
Yeah, how about the show that you're having up right now? The show that's open. At the Georgetown.
Okay, my wife, Julie Dirk Marty, we co-own the gallery and the building and all that, and she's now running everything, which makes me absolutely thrilled. And doing a much better job at it, and there's a show of abstract art that's up right now called Charged Fields. And on Saturday, at 4 to 6, there's gonna be an artist talk. So a few of the artists are coming in, they're gonna hopefully explain their work and help us have a deeper, richer knowledge of the work. And we have a lot of stuff going on there, so please come anytime. And I want to thank the Mark Twain Library, especially Elaine. And this goes back to my PBS fundraising days, but I'll do it for the Mark Twain Library. please support this great institution. It really, really, truly is worth it. And as Mark Twain said, he didn't want a municipal library. He wanted whatever this is called, a library association. Yeah. But we all have to pitch in. So whether it's $5 or $50,000. That never worked. Please do your best. You're here tonight and we appreciate that. And if you can dig a little bit once in a while, everything would be. Thank you. Thank you.